I wanted to take this opportunity to say thank you personally for all the wonderful messages of support and for your understanding.
When Anne and Catherine stepped into that private room just 3 minutes ago, no one could have foreseen the tidal wave of change they were about to unleash. A quiet meeting behind closed doors turned into a fierce confrontation, stripping Camilla of her control over palace decisions. As tensions reached their peak, the stakes couldn't have been higher. What happened in that brief but powerful moment, and how did it shake the very foundation of royal authority? Do you think Anne and Catherine's move was a necessary step for the monarchy's survival? Or do you believe it was a risky power grab? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. To help us create more videos and uncover the hidden truths within royal affairs, please subscribe. The Quiet Revolution. The atmosphere in the palace had shifted just moments ago, marking the beginning of something monumental. In a quiet, almost unnoticed moment, Catherine and Anne, both composed and unwavering in their resolve, gathered in private. The absence of fanfare or even staff made the encounter all the more secretive and significant. Behind the closed door, their conversation was set to spark a dramatic transformation in the royal hierarchy. Inside the room, the tension between the two women was palpable, each knowing the weight of the decisions being made. The stakes were high, and the future of the monarchy rested on their shoulders. This was not just another conversation. It was a turning point in the kingdom's power dynamics. With no one else around to hear, Catherine and Anne quietly deliberated, their resolve solidifying with each passing minute. The locked door was a metaphor for their exclusivity, keeping out all distractions as they prepared to challenge the growing influence of Camilla, who had slowly but surely taken control of the palace's decision-making. Their plan was far from a simple act of defiance. It was a calculated response to the steady tightening of Camilla's grip on the palace's inner workings. For too long, Camilla's influence had grown, and the royal family's traditions were slowly being reshaped to fit her vision. But Catherine and Anne weren't willing to sit back and allow this shift to continue without a fight. As the conversation unfolded, the power dynamic that had once seemed unbreakable was being tested. The monarchy was teetering on the edge of change, and these two women knew it. The challenge was not just personal, but systemic. This was about the very future of the royal family and its influence over the kingdom. Every word spoken behind that locked door was a step closer to reclaiming the power they felt was slipping away. They were not acting out of spite or ambition, but out of a deep belief that the palace and its traditions needed to remain true to their origins. Both Catherine and Anne knew they had a responsibility, not just to their own interests, but to the kingdom they served. This quiet, secret meeting was the first spark of something much bigger, a plan that could shatter the status quo and push back against the rising tide of Camilla's control. As the two women prepared to face the inevitable consequences of their actions, they understood the risks. The road ahead would not be easy, but they were ready to stand firm. They knew that the ripple effect of their decision would not only change the structure of the palace, but could reshape the monarchy itself. The future was uncertain, but the course they were about to set in motion was unmistakable. The royal family would never be the same again. Anne and Catherine met in a confidential meeting to discuss how to curb the growing influence of Camilla, fearing that she might render their roles in the monarchy irrelevant. But could Camilla truly overshadow them both? Or is their fear unwarranted? Let's uncover the details. The rising threat. Camilla's influence within the palace had been quietly but steadily growing, and it was starting to feel impossible to ignore. Her presence in decision-making circles had become more dominant, and her control over palace affairs was becoming more apparent with each passing day. Catherine, once a key player in these crucial meetings, found herself increasingly excluded, left on the sidelines as the queen consort took center stage. Meanwhile, Anne, known for her unshakable strength and steadfast loyalty to the royal family, couldn't help but feel uneasy. Her sense of duty to the monarchy told her that something wasn't right. Both women, despite their different roles within the palace, were feeling the same growing tension. They knew that if they didn't act soon, the balance of power in the royal family could shift in a way that they might not be able to recover from. It wasn't just about politics, it was about the future of the monarchy itself. With Camilla's unchecked influence growing stronger by the day, the very foundations of the royal family felt at risk. The idea of her controlling everything, with no checks on her power, was a prospect neither Catherine nor Anne could accept. The pressure on them was mounting, but so was the urgency. Time was running out, and both women could feel it in the pit of their stomachs. The palace, once a symbol of stability and tradition, was at a crossroads. They had to act swiftly and decisively before the situation escalated any further. The fear of standing by and watching the monarchy fall under the weight of Camilla's authority was unbearable. They knew that if they allowed things to continue without intervening, they would lose any chance of regaining control. Catherine and Anne weren't motivated by ambition or personal gain. Their reasons ran much deeper. They were determined to safeguard the monarchy's future and uphold the core values it had always represented. Both women fully understood the weight of the moment. They knew their actions would come with risks, potentially estranging powerful figures within the palace. The stakes were high, and once they set their plan in motion, there would be no going back. It wasn't just a political move, it was a bold stand to protect the monarchy from a future they believed was in jeopardy. But the stakes were simply too high. The monarchy needed to be preserved, and they were the ones who had the power to make a stand. It was now or never. As they met in secret, the weight of their decision became clear. The future of the royal family rested on their shoulders, and they had to act before it was too late to stop the tide of change that was threatening to overwhelm everything they held dear. Camilla's influence within the monarchy is undeniably growing, and key decisions have been made without Anne and Catherine's knowledge. But how can they stop her before she becomes unchallenged? Now, let's explore how Catherine and Anne united to save the monarchy from Camilla's grip. The silent pact. The details of what truly happened behind those closed doors are shrouded in secrecy. But the result was undeniable. Catherine, with a sense of urgency and determination, laid out before Anne the undeniable evidence of Camilla's increasingly manipulative hold over the monarchy. It was all there, clear signs that the queen consort had been pulling the strings from behind the scenes, subtly yet steadily weaving her influence into every corner of royal life. As Catherine shared this information, Anne's initial surprise gave way to a deepening sense of concern. She had always prided herself on her ability to stay calm and composed, unshaken by palace politics or power struggles. But this was different. The power dynamics of the royal family were shifting in ways she hadn't fully realized until now. With each piece of evidence that Catherine presented, Anne's unease turned into something far more urgent. She saw how Camilla's quiet rise to power had been gaining momentum, and how it threatened the very foundation of everything the monarchy had stood for. Anne, who had always been one of the most solid and reliable figures in the palace, now found herself questioning the future. The weight of Catherine's words pushed her into action. She couldn't sit back and ignore the implications of what they were facing. Her loyalty to the monarchy and its traditions was unwavering, but the rising tide of Camilla's influence was beginning to drown out those values. This wasn't just a matter of personal politics. It was about the survival of an institution that had lasted centuries. In the hushed, charged silence, Anne finally spoke up, her voice calm, but carrying the weight of everything they stood to lose. The two women, once seen as opposites within the royal world, now stood side by side with a shared sense of purpose. They knew the dangers they faced and the risks ahead, yet there was no hesitation among them. Their unity was rooted in a quiet but powerful strength, a bond that made their decision inevitable and clear, despite the uncertainty of what lay ahead. Together, they reached an agreement, an unspoken understanding, that would shape the course of the monarchy's future. Their resolve was set. The stakes were higher than either of them had ever imagined, but they knew they couldn't stand by while Camilla's unchecked power threatened everything they held dear. They were no longer just two women in the palace. They were protectors of the monarchy's legacy, and they had one singular goal: to ensure it didn't collapse under Camilla's overwhelming influence. As the weight of their shared commitment settled in, there was no turning back. Their quiet agreement had set a course, and now they were determined to fight for the monarchy's survival, no matter what it took. Beyond Anne and Catherine reaching an agreement to save the monarchy from Camilla's monopolizing influence, how far has Camilla used her power? And could Anne and Catherine's pact stop her from advancing her advocacy? Let's find out. Camilla's public role. Camilla's growing influence has sparked a lot of speculation, especially about her control behind the scenes within the royal family. However, it's crucial to recognize her significant public role as queen consort, which has been equally impactful. Over the years, Camilla has used her position to champion numerous charitable causes and advocate for social change. Her deep involvement in charity work has allowed her to become a powerful voice for important issues, using her platform to raise awareness and drive meaningful conversations on topics like abuse, literacy, and animal welfare. Since 1994, Camilla has been a passionate campaigner for osteoporosis awareness, a cause that has been close to her heart for many years. Her dedication to raising awareness about the condition has not only brought her widespread recognition, but also earned her several prestigious honors and awards. The Queen Consort's tireless work in this area has been admirable, especially as she has used her high-profile position to shed light on the importance of bone health, something that might otherwise have been overlooked. But her charitable work goes far beyond osteoporosis. Camilla has long been a vocal advocate for a range of social issues that have affected countless lives. She has consistently used her platform to bring attention to sensitive topics such as rape, sexual abuse, illiteracy, animal welfare, and poverty. By speaking out on these issues, she has given a voice to many who feel marginalized and voiceless in society. Her efforts to raise awareness have helped to ensure that these causes remain in the public conversation, and her involvement in them has cemented her role as a prominent figure in charitable and social advocacy. Through her unwavering commitment to these causes, Camilla has certainly carved out a unique place for herself in the public eye. Her work has been praised by many, and she has become a role model for those who admire her compassion and dedication to making a difference. But, as recent events have shown, her strong presence in the public sphere may also have added to the tensions within the royal family. While her charitable efforts have undoubtedly contributed to her popularity, the growing influence she has exerted behind closed doors has led to concerns among some members of the palace, raising questions about the balance of power within the monarchy. Despite the challenges that have come with her expanding role, Camilla's dedication to charitable work has undeniably shaped her legacy. She has not only been a figurehead for the monarchy, but also a powerful advocate for social change, and her impact on these causes will likely continue to resonate for years to come. Camilla had made a name for herself, not only within the walls of the palace, but also in public service. But what efforts will be made to challenge this remarkable achievement? Could Camilla use her influence to manipulate the monarchy, or will she be stopped at the right time? Now, let's delve into the battle for the throne, a silent rebellion. As Catherine presented the evidence, Anne's initial shock quickly turned into a firm resolve. What had begun as a conversation filled with frustration now took a decisive turn. It was no longer just about personal grievances or royal protocol. It was about something far greater, the future of the monarchy itself. Anne, who had always been steady and measured, could feel the weight of the situation settling in. Catherine's revelations had opened her eyes to just how deep Camilla's influence had grown and how critical it was to act before it was too late. Anne's initial confusion started to fade as clarity took its place. She understood now that the royal family's future depended on swift, decisive action. This was no longer just about palace politics. It was about protecting the monarchy itself. Camilla's growing hold on power was no longer something that could be ignored. It had become an urgent threat. Both Anne and Catherine knew they had no time to waste. If they were to save the monarchy, they needed to act immediately, before Camilla's influence reached an uncontrollable point. In that moment, a shift occurred. The conversation between Catherine and Anne went from being an emotional outpouring to a focused and strategic discussion. They understood that their next steps had to be calculated and bold. The royal family had always stood as a symbol of tradition and stability, but that foundation was now being threatened by Camilla's growing influence. The balance of power in the palace was tipping, and Anne and Catherine knew that if they didn't act swiftly, it could be too late to restore order. It wasn't just about challenging Camilla, it was about securing the monarchy's future. The women were not just fighting for their own positions, they were fighting to preserve the royal family's long-standing authority. They were standing at a crossroads, and the choices they made now would echo for generations. Together, they realized they held the power to shift the balance of influence within the palace. They didn't have to sit back and watch as Camilla consolidated her hold. They could do something about it. The air between them grew heavier with each passing moment as they began to form a plan. This wouldn't be a simple confrontation, nor a public showdown. Their strategy would require careful precision, secrecy, and resolve. They knew that they couldn't risk making a move that would expose their intentions too soon. But with their determination now solidified, they began to craft a course of action, a quiet, calculated effort to challenge Camilla's dominance from within the palace walls. The stage was set for a confrontation that neither Camilla nor the royal family had seen coming. Anne and Catherine were united, focused, and ready to fight for the monarchy's survival. But what strategy would they adopt to achieve their goal? Could they succeed in their efforts to outsmart Camilla? Now let's uncover Catherine's strategic move, quietly taking control. With her calm and collected demeanor, Catherine began to quietly but powerfully shift the balance of power within the palace. As Camilla's influence began to wane, Catherine saw an opening and moved in, gradually filling the space left by the weakening queen consort. Unlike the flashy moves often seen in the spotlight, Catherine made no grand announcements or public spectacles. Instead, she set her sights on the monarchy's daily operations, subtly but steadily taking control behind the scenes. Catherine's approach to change was subtle yet powerful, like a quiet river carving its path through the land. Her actions didn't demand attention, but they undeniably reshaped the way the palace operated. There was no dramatic shift, just a steady, deliberate flow that brought order and clarity to a chaotic environment. Catherine wasn't waiting for things to fall into place. She took charge, carefully bringing structure and purpose back to the royal household. Her influence, though quiet, was transforming everything around her in a way everyone could feel. As the days passed, it became increasingly evident that Catherine was no longer just a princess in title alone. Through her actions, she had become the de facto leader of the royal household, even if the title had not formally been given to her. She had assumed control of the monarchy's internal workings, ensuring everything ran smoothly and with purpose. The staff, the courtiers, and even the royal advisors couldn't help but notice the shift. Catherine's steady hand was guiding the palace through a period of uncertainty, providing a much-needed sense of direction and stability. Her approach was anything but disruptive. Catherine wasn't trying to make a spectacle of her rise to power. Instead, she quietly took charge, handling day-to-day operations, making decisions, and managing the household's many moving parts with skill and grace. Her leadership was measured, focused, and, above all, effective. With each passing day, the palace was running more efficiently, the weight of decision-making lifting from the shoulders of those who had once been consumed by it. What was most striking, though, was how effortlessly Catherine took on this leadership role. She wasn't looking for attention or praise. Rather, She sought to restore the monarchy to a sense of order, using her intelligence and sense of duty to ensure the royal family could function as it always had. The palace had been adrift, but Catherine was now its anchor, providing stability in a time when it was needed most. While Camilla's influence had faded, Catherine's presence grew ever stronger. Without fanfare, without the need for a crown, she had become the true guiding force within the palace, the unspoken leader who had brought clarity to a monarchy that had been teetering on the edge of uncertainty. Catherine increased her visibility within the palace, using her youthful energy and determination to consistently show up in ways that Camilla couldn't match. But does this signal a takeover from Camilla? And will Catherine be accepted and supported by the royal inner circle? Now, let's unravel Catherine's quiet revolution, the rise of a quiet princess. As Camilla's influence began to wane and her presence in the palace slowly diminished, Catherine's leadership quietly began to take shape. It wasn't through bold speeches or dramatic gestures that Catherine rose to prominence, but rather through her steady and unwavering resolve. With each passing day, she subtly took charge, using her calm demeanor and quiet strength to steer the monarchy in a new direction. Catherine became the pillar of stability that the royal family desperately needed. In a time of uncertainty, when power struggles and shifting allegiances threatened to disrupt the delicate balance of the palace, Catherine stood firm. She didn't seek attention or try to make a spectacle of her growing influence. Instead, she worked diligently behind the scenes, overseeing decisions and managing the complex operations of the palace with grace and efficiency. What set Catherine apart was not just her ability to lead, but her ability to earn the trust and respect of everyone around her. Palace staff, courtiers, and advisors all began to look to Catherine for guidance, and they soon realized that she was the one making the most important decisions. She was always present, always thoughtful, and always fair, ensuring that the palace ran smoothly and that the royal family could maintain its dignity and purpose. Although her leadership was never officially recognized by any formal title or declaration, the truth was evident to all who worked within the palace walls. Catherine had become the de facto leader of the royal household, the one who made things happen without fanfare. Her role was clear to everyone. She was the steady hand, the quiet force that held everything together. There was no denying that Catherine had earned her place at the helm. It wasn't a matter of ambition or desire for power, but rather a deep sense of duty to the monarchy and the royal family. She understood the importance of tradition, the need for stability, and the responsibility that came with being part of such a revered institution. Her leadership wasn't about personal gain or recognition. It was about ensuring the survival and strength of the monarchy for future generations. As Camilla's influence continued to fade, Catherine's presence became more prominent. Without any public announcement or grand gesture, she had cemented her role as the true leader of the royal household. Everyone knew it, even if it remained unspoken. Her leadership was a quiet revolution, one that had been built on trust, respect, and a deep commitment to the monarchy. And in that quiet strength, Catherine had found her place as the anchor the royal family needed to weather the storms ahead. Catherine solidified her leadership and influence within the monarchy, strategically sidelining Camilla. But will Camilla accept defeat so easily? Or has the fight already been won by Catherine? Could this mark the end of Camilla's influence within the monarchy? Let's find out. Camilla's final stand and the monarchy's future. As Camilla's power began to wane, she wasn't about to let it slip away without a fight. Desperation took hold of her as she scrambled to reassert her influence within the palace. The once dominant force, now losing her grip, sought any opportunity to regain control, trying to make her presence felt in ways both subtle and overt. But as hard as she fought to reclaim her authority, there was a sense that her time was running out. Meanwhile, Catherine's rise to power seemed unstoppable. Quietly, but steadily, she began to take charge, earning respect and support from those around her. It wasn't a sudden shift, but rather a gradual process, one marked by Catherine's calm strength, steady leadership, and clear direction. What made her ascent all the more powerful was the quiet support she had from Charles, whose backing had a significant influence behind the scenes. With his silent endorsement, Catherine was able to solidify her role, and the monarchy's future began to change in subtle but undeniable ways. Though the power struggle played out largely behind closed doors, everyone within the palace could feel the shift. The air was thick with tension, though no one dared to openly acknowledge it. Camilla, once the uncontested queen consort, now found herself fighting not just to hold on to her position, but to reshape the very direction of the monarchy. She was struggling to maintain her relevance, but Catherine's quiet strength was slowly making her position untenable. The question lingered in the air. Was this the end of Camilla's reign, or was it just the beginning of a much deeper battle for control within the royal family? The stakes were high, and both women knew that this struggle would determine the future of the monarchy. As each side positioned itself, the future remained uncertain. Yet one thing was clear: this was no ordinary palace dispute. This was a fight for the very soul of the monarchy. The monarchy, as it stood, was on the edge of a profound transformation. With Catherine rising steadily in influence and Camilla's power fading, the kingdom's leadership seemed poised for a dramatic shift. But what would the fallout be? Would the royal family find itself torn apart by this silent revolution? Or would it emerge stronger, reshaped by the forces at play? As the drama unfolded behind palace doors, the public remained unaware of the intense power struggle happening within the walls of their beloved monarchy. Yet, everyone could sense that something was changing. A quiet revolution was taking place, one that would have long-lasting consequences for the royal family's future. What seemed like the end for Camilla may only be the beginning of a deeper battle, a battle that would determine who would truly lead the monarchy in the years to come. The future was uncertain, but the fallout from this struggle would leave its mark for generations. So, what do you think about the result of Anne and Catherine's pact? Could this be the end of Camilla's influence within the monarchy? We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe.